Welcome to the Saturday in Athens podcast. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, joined as always by my co host, James Kim. Week 2, homie. Dawgs home opener. Get jacked up. Marquee opponent.
Yeah, Tennessee Tech, not the sexiest matchup in the world, but, there are some more exciting games. We'll talk a little Dogs, talk some games. It is week 2. There's college football, so nothing really too much to cry about. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
You got that right. I do have a fun tidbit about Tennessee Tech that I'll drop later. So be on the edge of your seat for
Oh,
that,
boy.
buddy.
Can't
Be on the
wait.
edge of your seat for that. Well, look, man, we want to lead off something exciting. Well, first off, let me say this. If you're watching the show, if you like the show, wherever you consume it, whether it's traditional podcasts where you're on Spotify or Apple or whatever it may be, like the show, subscribe to the show, leave us a rating. All that stuff's helpful. Same thing if you watch us live, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. The more interaction we have, the bigger the community have, the more it allows us to do. So we appreciate that. We love that all of you watch and hang with us, man. It's just awesome for Jimmy and I. If you know our story, you know that we're Virginia guys, so don't have a huge community of Dogs fans that we kind of came from, and this show has provided us that. So it's been fantastic. We just appreciate y'all. I just want to put that out there. We're grateful. We love doing this. We love getting to spend time together and talk about something that we love. So thank you all. Kind of in that same vein, we got an exciting announcement. We are doing our first ever watch party. We are co-hosting it at Sweet Auburn Barbecue in Atlanta, which is a Georgia alumni-owned restaurant. Howard and Anita, brother and sister that own that, are Georgia alums, and we were so fired up when they reached out to ask us if we'd be interested in doing it, and we are doing it next Saturday for the Kentucky game. So Kentucky kick is 7:30. We are going to do a pregame show at Sweet Auburn at, I guess, 6:30 probably. Don't you think, homie?
Yeah,
Kicks at
6:30.
7:30. Probably do it like
Something like that.
6:30. It won't be anything extravagant, probably just a half hour, but we'll be hanging out for the folks that want to come. The game posters that Tom Sapp does for us, we're going to have some of those signed, ready for folks that come. There are going to be a couple of raffles for gift cards to Sweet Auburn Barbecue. And if you're not familiar with Sweet Auburn Barbecue in Atlanta, please look it up. God, the food is just like electric. It's kind of like a barbecue Asian fusion type deal, and like it's outstanding. And our interactions with Howard and Anita thus far have just been awesome people and really cool to hang out with. So we're so jacked up, so fired up about it. Can't wait to do it. So yeah, we will post some stuff this week, and there will be an RSVP link for it. So if you're interested in coming, if you're in the Atlanta area and want to bark with some fellow dogs, come on out. We'd love to see you, love to meet you, and RSVP and come hang with us. So something to be excited about, and look for more information about that. So on the football front, Dogs are home opener between Hedges this week. Brook Whitmire, in a little over 24 hours, gonna come over the loudspeakers and let the gathered crowd know that it's finally Saturday in Athens. Can't wait for that. We love Brook, friend of the show. So yeah, it's gonna be great, man. I think it's gonna be good weather. Sanford's gonna look awesome. The new renovations, I think, are completely done. Right? I thought I saw that on the
Yes.
facilities website. So that's exciting. I know that was a big project. So yeah, a lot of cool things happening. Obviously not a sexy opponent or anything. Tennessee Tech. I think the spread that I saw was like 53 and a half, which is quite the number. And still may not be enough. This is one of those where everybody gonna get to play a little bit.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that'll be cool. Here's my fun fact about the Golden Eagles for you. Do you know who the head coach of Tennessee Tech is?
No clue.
I'm going to throw his name at you and see if it registers. Bobby Wilder is the head coach.
Oh, that sounds very familiar, but it sounds like it's from a movie.
Bobby Wilder was the inaugural head coach for the Old Dominion Monarchs.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So for the uninitiated, Old Dominion is a school in Virginia, and now in what, Conference USA?
Yes, Conference USA.
Yeah. So, but at the time, had no football program, like up until '09. So when Jimmy and I were in school, they had no football program. And they added football in '09, and Bobby Wilder was the first head coach in program history. Well, if you do know the deep history of ODU football, that's not technically true. When they were an offshoot of William and Mary, they played football like in the late 30s, early 40s, but nobody really counts that. So we're just going to act like 2009 was the opening year. So they started as an FCS program. They were 1AA. I'm pretty sure they were in the CAA with us, right?
Yes, they were. They were in the
Yeah.
CAA. Actually dominated the CAA for a couple of years. I believe didn't Heineke go there?
That's correct.
Taylor Heineke.
They were quarterbacked by Georgia-born Taylor Heineke, and he was electric for the Monarchs and Bobby Wilder. Yeah, they came out to shoot hot, dude. I think the inaugural season they went like 10-2. I mean, came out of nowhere, and so they performed so well at the FCS level. And I don't know if this was always their plan or if they just kind of capitalized on the early success, but they jumped pretty quick, man. I mean, they were FCS for only like 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
long.
then jumped to CUSA and really had success at the 1A level the first few years. And then I think the last 2 years of Bobby Wilder's tenure, like 18-19, they fell off the map. I think his last season they were 1-11. So, So he was out of football from 19 to, I'm pretty sure this is his first season at Tennessee Tech. And so, yeah, anyways, I thought you would find that interesting.
Yeah, had some nightmares from Taylor Heineke running all over the Dukes. He was fun to watch, but it was not fun if you were playing against him.
Yeah, dude, he was electric at Old Dominion. Those Old Dominion teams were good. So that's Bobby Waters' lineage. Tennessee Tech lost their opening game of the season. They're in the Ohio Valley Conference in the FCS. Yeah, man, there ain't much else to say about the Golden Eagles, unfortunately. I think this is more of a everybody stay healthy and get ready for Kentucky.
Yeah, just stay healthy. Just please no injuries.
Yeah, speaking of Kentucky, dude, they open their SEC slate. They play South Carolina. Which, speaking of Old Dominion,
wow, South Carolina looked rough.
They did not look good. Did not look good. Because I don't think Old Dominion's going to be any good this year. And so, yeah,
they're after week 1, there are already rumors of them trying to get the money together to buy out Beamer after 1 week, because they're with all the Michigan sign stealing stuff that's like the investigation going on, like they're pushing really hard saying that South Carolina was involved in that, getting signs for those 2 games against Tennessee, and who was the other game that they won that knocked them out of the playoffs that year?
Who?
Remember South Carolina the year that they beat Tennessee and Clemson back-to-back weeks?
Oh, yeah.
Like, with the investigation that the NCAA is doing, there are rumors, there are always rumors that, somehow South Carolina got the signs from Michigan for those 2 games because supposedly Stallions scouted them. Well, apparently in the NCAA investigation, they're looking into Beamer for that as well. So after that, the lackluster performance week 1, South Carolina is like looking into the buyout of Beamer because this goes nuts. It's getting crazy.
This is based out of nothing outside of a gut thing. I don't know Shane Beamer. I never met him, but my only exposure to him is obviously what he puts out in the public. I can just tell you, if he was coaching the team that I was backing, I would not be happy.
He seems like an A-class douchebag.
Yeah, dude, he just rubs me the wrong way, man. He just seems like a turd, like in every sense of the word. And so, yeah, man, if I was a South Carolina follower, he is not who I would want in charge of my program at all. Let's have an honest conversation about this, though. I live in the great state of South Carolina, and tons and tons of Gamecock fans, obviously, right? And it seems to me, in my conversation with a lot of my colleagues and friends and stuff, that it's interesting, right? Like, dude, when I think of South Carolina, I don't think of I think of George Rogers, which is obviously like big time football name, right? Yeah. And I think of Marcus Lattimore and Steve Spurrier's tenure there. Yeah. Outside of that, what's your thought about South Carolina football? It's just like, this is a guaranteed check on the schedule. That's what I think about it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they had that stretch with Spurrier there with Lattimore, Garcia, and
Alshon
realistic
Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey. Yeah, and I mean, they had that one upset. What was it? It was at 18, 19.
They beat us.
They beat us. Yeah, when they beat us, and that was with Champ when Champ was the
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
But I mean, realistically, South Carolina has just kind of been they're a 6 to 7 win team that'll occasionally get 8, but occasionally will get 5. But they're just a middle of the road team. They're the destination for FCS players who want to play in the SEC to develop themselves to get more exposure for the league. That's how I look at it. And then if they do well there, then they go to a bigger SEC program, aka Juice Wells, who's now at Ole Miss. He had that really good season 2 years ago at USC. Got hurt last year. Now he's at Ole Miss. They're a stepping stone school.
Yeah, I guess that was the point of me asking the question. Is like, if we're just talking about what they actually are, dude, they're going to have some kind of visionary athletic director that hits on a hire, right? I think that's what you have to have. I think the Spurrier thing was, you almost can't count that because he's so singular, like as a personality and as a coach, right? Like, for example, okay, if I was a really good college prospect and Steve Spurrier was the head coach at South Carolina and he came to recruit me, dude, I'm gonna seriously think about going to South Carolina because it's Steve Spurrier. And there's not but so many guys that fall into that category. And for them to land him, I think was a coup. But what I'm saying is, outside of that, is South Carolina a destination job? Is South Carolina a spot where kids are putting Gamecock posters on their wall and that's where they dream of going to play? And I say this as benignly as possible. It's not. And so I find the expectations of the alumni base are out of sorts with the reality of what their program is. And now, look, I'll caveat all that with we're in the wild wild west, okay, brand new world. And so I think NIL can shift that paradigm very very quickly. But again, to what I said earlier, I think you got to have some dynamic leadership in place to help effectuate that. I don't think they have that right now, you know. And dude, they've got some elements. Like I've told people, Williams-Brice, excellent atmosphere. It's cool. Like, and when they are good, super super difficult place to play. It's just they generally don't have the Jimmies and the Joes, right? I mean, that's what we always talk about on here. It's Jimmies and Joes, and they just haven't had them. And I think, let's also be very frank. You know how your boy feels about Marcus Lattimore. He's probably like one of my favorite college players that didn't wear the Power G of all time. Like,
Yeah.
I loved him. He was awesome to watch. And I couldn't have been more upset when he got hurt because, number one, you also know that I loathe it. I don't care what team they play for. I hate when these kids get hurt. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's like my dad and I were watching opening weekend, and I can't remember which game we were watching, but just like 4 plays in, kid gets hurt and grabbing his knee. And I told dad, I go, God, I hate that. Like, that kid has worked all year. He's put in 8 months, busting his ass, lifting weights, and going to sprints, and he's in the film room, and he's giving everything he's got. And now, bam, knee injury. He's not going to play all year. And it's like, oh, God, I hate that, man. It's like, I just hate it. If I could snap my fingers and like have it be a perfect world, that would be part of it for me. Kids that play get to play. They're not having to sit because of injury or having their career ended because of an injury. And I know it's all part of it, but God, I hate that, man. It's like with Marcus, man. Dude, he would have been an excellent pro. Excellent. And so to see his story in that way, I hated it. I don't like it. I mean, really, if we're having an honest conversation, it ain't much different with Todd, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know Todd was electric when he went to the NFL, but if he hadn't had the previous knee injuries, he would have had a lot longer NFL career.
We're talking Hall of Fame career if Todd doesn't get hurt.
Correct. That's my belief. He is the what my eyes have seen, and I always tell people this. I see him and talk about him the way people talk about Herschel. He
Yeah.
was unstoppable at his peak.
For our, our lifetime, I mean, we didn't get to see Herschel play. Like we weren't born yet, so we didn't get to see him play in college, and we were young when he was in the NFL, and he wasn't the same type of player.
Yeah.
So seeing Gurley, like, and you got to remember, like, for us seeing Gurley, like, our view of Gurley is very skewed because freshman, he was dominant as for a freshman. Sophomore year, he was hurt a lot and not when he came back, he wasn't quite as dominant as he could have been because he was coming back from the injury. He had that high ankle sprain. And then junior year, he was so dominant, and then he got suspended. So it's like, realistically, we only got to see Todd, maybe 20 games in college?
Yeah, like little glimpses.
Little glimpses. And his one full year was his true freshman year. So
you know what's interesting about Todd too? I feel like this always gets left out in his story because of how his college career ended up going, and then how his NFL career went. People now assume that he was this blue chip 5-star recruit that Georgia bagged because they're Georgia. And I'm like, dude, my favorite part of his story is that of all the running backs, okay, especially in the state of North Carolina, he was not the prize.
Yeah.
Keith Marshall was the prize.
Keith Marshall was the prize.
Everybody forgets that. Like, Todd was 3-star at a Tarboro High School, and he was kind of like an add-on. He was going to be like a track star project, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody saw him, and it was like, who is this guy? And so I think of Coach Rick's entire tenure, that's got to be top 2 recruiting wins of his entire tenure. Number 1, for the foresight to see it, and then to get him there, right? And then to have him and Keith, which Keith's another one. We were talking about Marcus Lattimore. If Keith had stayed healthy, just game busting speed and like electric. So that's another one that always upsets me, is that he got hurt and didn't reach his full potential. But yeah, man, that's the part of Todd's story I want yelled louder, is that he was not this like can't miss, everybody in America wants him recruit. Just wasn't that way. That's revisionist history. So yeah.
A lot of people forget too is that Rick turned around and did it 2 years later too. Now, granted, Chubb was a highly rated recruit, but Sony was the prize.
Yep, that's right. Sony was American Heritage, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was on the heels of Isaiah McKenzie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, because Isaiah McKenzie, I feel like, was one of the first big pulls out of American Heritage for.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Anyways, that's one of the things.
We're going way down the pipeline.
Yeah. But I do love that about Todd's story. Let's talk a little bit about the slate this week. Obviously, monster matchup. Big noon kickoff, going to be Texas and Michigan. And I saw the line on it. Texas 7-point road favorite, which I think is telling. Michigan, I think, still a little bit surviving on the juice from last year. I don't know that they are what people think they are. I think they're going to get exposed quite a bit this year. Just one man's opinion. But I think that's going to start on Saturday. 7 don't feel like enough. I think Texas is going to put a whipping on them in the big house.
I think it's going to be not close. If this was a night game in the big house, I think the atmosphere would help Michigan more. A noon kick in the big house doesn't really help them that much at all.
Nope.
So I think that, Texas is going to go in there, and I think this will be over pretty quick. Michigan looked less than impressive last week against Fresno. Michigan's defense is still really good. Let's not act like it's not. But their offense is their offense is pretty much like it was last year. It's kind of they're trying to run it down your throat, and they just don't have the horses to do it this year.
Yeah, they lost a lot, man, a lot, and I do think for most programs that aren't named Georgia or Alabama, there's just a certain hangover that comes after a national title season. I don't know if it's the length of the season. I don't know if it's expectation. I don't know if it's complacency, which obviously Kirby has talked about a ton, but it's not the norm to do what Alabama did for so long with Coach Saban and what Kirby has done with the Dogs. It's that is the exception, not the rule. And so I'm sure there's some of that too. But yeah, to your point, man, they're just again, it's a Jimmy's and Joe's thing. They don't have the guys, especially offensively, I think, to put up what they're going to need to put up. And let's also have an honest conversation. It ain't like they really played anybody in the regular season last year. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for them to get exposed. So I think Texas fixing to expose them on Saturday. I mean, that's my expectation. Is that's what's going to happen?
Yeah, me too. I mean, I already picked Texas. I think the line I got was 6 because I picked it early in the week, but yeah, I've seen it's moved quite a bit. I've even seen it up to 7.5 on some books.
Yeah, Again, I don't think that's going to be enough. What about you and I talked about this off air, but the game I told you I'm most excited, maybe the wrong word, compelled about is probably a better word. Is this Colorado Nebraska matchup, and a lot of it has to do with the carryover from last year and kind of the bad blood that came out in that game with Colorado thinking that Matt Rule kind of made some sideways comments at Deion Sanders in the program, and then Shadur in the post game saying things about Matt Rule, back and forth, and then you've obviously got a marquee quarterback matchup with Shadur and with Dylan Raiola and all the things, right? And as I told you off air, any game that Travis Hunter is playing in is one that is going to be top of mind for me, just because I think he is and I don't think there's a close second, the most dynamic player in college football. What did he play? 103 plays last week? So
it was over 100. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, dude, I've been on this train since like week 1 of last year. I told you this after the TCU game that for me, it's he is, dude, he's as dynamic as they get, and he's doing it on both sides of the ball, and like in 2024. So it's incredible, man. He's just one of a kind. I read an article on him this week or last week. I can't remember if it was ESPN or The Athletic, where they talked about his off-season training and kind of what he does. And apparently he's kind of like Dion in the way that, Dion was no illicit substances, right? Like notoriously used to drink orange juice when they would go out with like buddies and stuff. Like not a drinker, wasn't into drugs, any of that stuff. Like, dude, he was about chasing the prize, honing his talent and chasing the prize. And you know, I shudder to think what Dion would have been, or what phenomenon he would have been in a social media world when he was playing at Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a phenomenon then, right? And so I can only imagine what he's been now. But essentially, he would have been Travis Hunter. Like, I think in the modern day, they would have used Dion like they're using Travis Hunter now. In that day and age, they just said, hey, you're going to play cornerback because that's where the most value is. But there was an article they released on Dion when he was at Florida State a couple weeks back that was awesome to read. Just guys that were there telling stories about Dion when he was at Florida State and like how good he was and all these different things. And dude, that Florida State team that was your mom and daddy's Florida State. That was the real Florida State.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was a whole different crew. So those are both cool articles, and I think there's some poetry in Travis playing for Dion. Like, I think there's no better person for him to kind of be guided by, because I think they're just similar animals. I mean, they're both just studs and freaks, one of a kind, and so it's cool to watch. So yeah, that's a compelling game for me. And dude, let's just talk too about like football culture wise, the history between those two programs. Like I think that is a matchup when the conferences split and kind of changed from how they were historically. That is a matchup they got lost. That was awesome from a juice perspective. And so yeah. I'm
No,
excited about that.
I'm excited for this game. I don't think, as far as football wise, that it's as compelling as some of the other matchups, just for the simple
Sure.
fact that
Yeah.
I don't, talent wise, skill positions, Colorado wins.
Yeah.
But that's not how you always just win games, as Colorado has shown.
Yeah.
Colorado showed last week in their game against North Dakota State they did not improve where they needed to improve. Their
Yep.
offensive and defensive lines still are not good.
Yep.
And because of that, I don't think that this game's going to be like relatively close. I see Nebraska winning by 2 scores. Now, granted, they have a true freshman quarterback playing. This is definitely his biggest game in his 2-game career. But it's in Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at home. And I just feel that they're going to be juiced for this game. They're going to be really excited for this game, and I just feel like that they've got the better guys in the trenches. And I will say this: I'm not a Dion fan by any means. I wasn't a fan of his as a player. He was, even when he was with the Cowboys back in the day. Is there a coach that has a thinner skin lately than Dion? Like, he just doesn't take criticism well of his program. Like, I don't get it. Like, it comes with the job.
I do think there's some validity to that. I think that if you invite the attention that he invites, you have to take the bad with the good. And when they were the darling of college football for the first month of the season last year, they were very, very good at inviting and accepting the good, right? And then I think when that flipped and people started to ask questions and kind of be a little more adversarial, I think then the attitude changed. And it almost became kind of like a bunker mentality. And which, I get that. Okay. The world's against us. That's a very normal, especially in football, kind of position to take. It's us against them, right? Everybody's against us. And so I understand that piece of it, but I think there's some validity to your point that if you're going to be brash and you're going to be out there, you have to be able to take the heat too. And I do think that could be handled differently and better than how it has been. I think it can't always be all criticism is invalid criticism. Like,
Yeah.
you got to take it sometimes. Sometimes criticism is warranted, and you got to be able to take it sometimes and go, yeah, hand up, we didn't do our best, or we screwed that up. And I think being accountable has to be as big a part of the equation as accepting the attention that can come with the success that you bring. Um, so yeah, I agree with that. I also think too that there just has to be, there's there's his story, there's your story, and there's the truth, right? And so I think Colorado's is somewhere in that middle. I think I think they are a lightning rod for so many folks. And so I do think the opinions get really, really crazy and really, really out there. And then on the opposite side, I think in some ways that's perpetuated by what comes out of Boulder. But in reality, I think everything lies more in that middle ground. I think if we're really having a brass tacks conversation about it, the long and short of it is he has made a program relevant that was not relevant for a long, long time. And whether it's relevance for the right reasons or not, I don't care. Okay. Applications to Colorado are up. Interest in the program is up. So he is doing what he was hired to do. And that's the long and short of that piece of it. Now, whether the results on the field will follow remains to be seen. I agree with you. What we saw against North Dakota State tells me that I don't know that the results are going to be that much different this year. They just seem to A, have a depth problem, and B, they got a depth problem with the first team, which is a real problem. Uh, and mainly on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, dude, North Dakota State did whatever it wanted essentially the whole game. I mean, they just didn't have much of an answer. And you and I talked about this last week. that's not saying anything against North Dakota State. North Dakota State is a premier program. What, 7 national titles at the FCS level? So, like, it's not like this is some typical bye game where you're going to walk out, drop 50, and go home, and everybody has a nice Saturday. North Dakota State, not that. All right. So granted on that, but I saw what I saw. And to your point, man, they are not, they ain't ready for that schedule. I mean, they posted that schedule like 10 times on the broadcast last week, and I kept going, I don't know that I see 5 wins on that board for them the way they're constructed. I just don't. And maybe something will change. And that's not to say anything to your point, dude. Their skill players are real.
Yeah.
Real. Like, they run, they stretch the field. Shador's a good player. That throw he made across the middle when he got hit, that's a big time play for the big touchdown.
Yeah.
Big time play. Like, they got plenty of skill talent. It's just, to your point, man, where it matters on a football team, they ain't got it. They just don't. And so, also, let me ask you this, and then we'll get off the Colorado stuff. But can you have any faith in a team where Pat Shermer is calling plays?
No.
No.
I still don't understand why they got rid of the other guy. Like, why they took his play calling was what, Kelly? What's his name?
Dude, I would love to know the full story behind that.
Yeah.
Something don't smell right with that whole situation. Sean Lewis.
Sean Lewis, that's right. He was the head coach of
Kent State.
Kent State.
Is that right? That's right.
Yeah.
Where is he now? He took the head job at what, San Diego State? Is that where he is now?
I don't remember. I know he left.
Well, no, he left mid-season. But what I'm saying is he took a head job. He's a head guy somewhere now. I'm pretty sure.
Well, yeah, he left the head job to take the OC job. Now he went back to the head job. I mean,
you and me both, when Dion hired him, said
that's a win. Yeah,
win, huge win. So when that went south as quickly as it did, it was like, man, something's off. Something ain't right about that. What are some of the other games this week that you're looking forward to? We got Tennessee, NC State. NC State, a lot of people's kind of under the radar pick to crash the CFP party. They got all they wanted last week from who? Western Carolina?
Yeah, Western Carolina.
What's Western Carolina? The Catamounts? The mighty Catamounts? Is that right?
I don't know. It sounds right. So
would that be the pull of all pulls? Maybe that's not right. I'll have to look. That feels right. I was shooting from the hip on that, though.
So I don't know about this game. People are ready to anoint Nico, the next, greatest thing ever after dismantling, Sisters of the Poor on Saturday. But I'm very curious to see how this looks. And I'm not saying that Tennessee should win and should win handedly against NC State. They're better. But, let's see how it goes against a team with a pulse. I don't really get how NC State is ranked after last week. They should have fallen out of the polls, in my opinion. But maybe they couldn't find, So we'll see about that. I'm really curious to see Michigan State, Maryland. I know that doesn't sound like a very sexy game, but Michigan State looked terrible on offense.
They're going to be bad, man.
I know. But it's one of those things that it's like, you expect a team to be better than they were last year, and they come out and they put up, 16 points, I think they scored. They won 16-3 or 16-7. It was bad.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how they are going to respond to that. Now, granted, it's against Maryland, so who knows? I have no idea how Maryland's going to be this year, and it's a conference game. So
you got the games up?
No, I don't. I don't have my tablet with me.
So I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know what game I'm interested in? Kind of like your Maryland Michigan State game. Arkansas's game this week.
Who they play?
I don't know, but it's a Power 5 opponent, and I just think it's gonna be a fun game to watch, given how Arkansas looked last week. And I know they didn't play nobody. Okay, that's not what this is about. What I am more interested in, dude, they dropped almost 70 points, didn't they?
Yeah,
They got
it was a lot.
transfer quarterback. They looked super exciting. They never looked that dynamic with Coach Pittman. Maybe year one when KJ was like doing what he was doing and they were undefeated when they came to Sanford. But even this looked a little more exciting. And I think if you listen to the show, you know, me and Jimmy love us some Sam Pittman. So
Yeah.
like I'm rooting for Boss Hog. Like I want him to do well. And so that is a game I've got my eyes on. I meant to write down who they were playing. But dude, it's a good matchup. Like it's a good measuring stick game to kind of see who they are. So that's what I'm paying attention to. Because I think they're fun little story to see what happens. Because he is obviously, I think everybody would admit, on a not a lukewarm seat. He is on a burn your ass seat.
Yeah.
So
That's he's downstairs in hell right now on fire.
yeah.
So I mean, and then there's my favorite game that's that going taking the under for the year.
Oh yeah.
We got to talk about that.
Cy-Hawk Trophy, baby. We got a rivalry trophy game week 2. Cy-Hawk Trophy.
So, and I was shocked that it opened at 38.5, which I
Was the total?
Was the total. I jumped on that. It's since gone down to 36.5, but I jumped on the 38.5. I was like, oh my God, let me get this. I think that opened up that on Sunday.
My man was on the phone with the bank as soon as he saw that line. How much I got? How much I got? I got to take it all out.
38.5. My God, I'd be shocked if they get to 25.
If y'all don't know, my boy loves betting a total, and there is no under that he prefers to take than a game that involves the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones.
Although I will say it was impressive. I know Iowa didn't play anybody last week, but they did manage to find the end zone in the fourth quarter twice last week.
Twice.
Yeah, that's impressive for them.
Yeah, cause for celebration. I feel like there's another one this week that I was interested in. Well, I am interested in that South Carolina Kentucky game just because it's funny, man. Like with the way the transfer portal works, you get attached to certain kids and they go somewhere else. And like with Kentucky, man, I'm really rooting for Brock and for Pop. Like, I hope they blow up. Not next week.
Not next week.
Yeah, I hope they don't blow up next week, but I hope they both have great years, by all accounts, from anybody I've ever heard talk about it. Brock, just like world-class kid, And so I hope he finds great success and I hope he has a great year. And then, dude, we love Pop. So I hope he has an awesome year too, man. I hope he gets drafted and all of it, So I think they'll both do well, and I'm excited to see him play. So I'll certainly have an eye on that game too. Who else is playing this week that's of any note? Like, I know that I don't know, dude. There's not a lot of huge games. Like I looked at the top 25 slate, and there's not a lot of rank on rank. I think Texas and Michigan is the only rank on rank game in the top 25. No.
North Carolina State, Tennessee.
NC State, Tennessee. Yeah.
There's 2.
14-24 is what that one is.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of Power 5 matchups that are intriguing. I'm interested in the Wazoo Texas Tech game. I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not anything that's going to be, to write home about, but I think that's a fun matchup. I think that could be, like high 30s, both teams score in the high 30s, and it could be a fun game, but it's not anything I have any analysis on.
How about Oregon Boise State? 15 years after the LeGarrette Blunt punched around the world?
I don't know. I mean, great callback, by the way.
That was a pull.
So I'm curious about this game because I think that Boise's getting a lot of love because of the running back that scored 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a little skewed because of who they were playing. And I think Oregon's getting a lot of hate because they looked less than enthused because of who they were playing. Yeah. Because they didn't show anything.
Yeah.
And they were playing Idaho, I think.
Yep.
And I'm like, so it's like you don't typically in these games, and we're going to see this game against Tennessee Tech. If Georgia doesn't look that good against Tennessee Tech, don't read anything into it because they're going to play a very vanilla offense and a vanilla defense. It's going to be like with G-Day. So I don't look anything into it. Like if Oregon looks bad this week when they're running their regular stuff, okay, fine. Maybe it's a cause for concern. But I think Oregon's going to dump truck them. I really do.
Let me throw one at you. How about App State Clemson?
Ooh, I forgot about that. Clemson has to come out and do something in this game.
Dude, but this is what I'm saying, okay? This is the reason why I bring that up. Maybe it doesn't materialize at all, but here's my thing. What did you see from them last week offensively that makes you go, oh, yeah, they're going to have no problem scoring points? Dude, I just think they are going to have a big problem scoring points.
Do you know what Clemson's offense reminded me of? A lot of.
Who?
Texas A&M from a couple years ago with Jimbo.
Oh God! If you're a Clemson fan and you just listen to that, you might have thrown yourself in front of a train. Like that ain't good.
I mean, am I wrong? Like
this is what I find so weird about this whole thing, right? Dabo goes out and gets Garrett Riley, who everybody and their mama was in love with. Garrett Riley, offensive mastermind, blah blah blah. Like that's a guy's name, right?
Yeah, from TCU.
Yeah. Well, like, dude, I ain't seen nothing impressive about that whole scenario. Like, I don't know, man. They just looked. They did not look good. Not look good. And I know some of it because I told you this in the preview. I said, "Who on that offense scares you going into the Georgia game? Who do you go? Oh yeah, boy, they're gonna pop the top on us." There ain't nobody. Nobody. Ain't nobody. And like, look, K. Klubnik just kind of seems like I'm gonna say it. This is almost like a 4-letter word for me to say this, but here it comes. You know what I'm fixing to say?
No, I don't.
My man just seems like a pair of shoes. Pair of shoes. I don't say that lightly, okay? I'm just telling you from what I've seen, he kind of seems like a pair of shoes. Like, and at that position, and man, I'm gonna tell you something. You go DJU, K. Klubnik. Now there are 2 cycles where they missed on the most important position on the field. Tough. That's tough. Because you gotta have a guy at that position now. You just do. There's no way around it. You look at every team that goes. What's the commonality? They all got a dude at quarterback, right? Why did Florida State get left out of the playoff?
Didn't have a quarterback.
Because their dude at quarterback couldn't play. It's the game, man. That is football, all right. And so, yeah, Clemson ain't got it. Sorry, they don't. I'll tell you who does have it though, and this may be opponent driven too because I think they're going to stink. But Cam Ward looked as advertised last weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And did you watch the highlights? I didn't notice it watching the game, but watching the highlights, he just looks so nonchalant.
Yeah.
When he's playing, he's like, it looks like he's taking like a stroll in the park when he's running. Like he gets to the sideline and he like walks 3 steps out of bounds. Like when he's 3 steps from the sideline. Like he doesn't have a care in the world.
If they don't win the ACC this year,
I'm never going to.
They ought to get rid of Cristobal.
I mean,
like
who's gonna win it? Like, I mean that conference is not good.
Tech lost to Vandy.
I know. My pick to win the conference. Go me.
I'm gonna tell you something, man. The ACC in bad shape, man. Bad shape. Florida State 0-2. Boston College worked them on Monday night. Like,
speaking of that, how's your brother holding up? You ready to jump off a bridge yet?
No. I ain't sending that text. No. Nope. I ain't even gonna bring it up. I'm not even gonna act like it's happening. What, dude? I've been there.
Yeah.
Been there. I'm just gonna leave that alone. Leave that alone. Nope. Yeah, dude. I just think that Miami team. Who knows what they'll be, but they got the best quarterback in the conference. So if they don't win, something's wrong. And dude, Cam Ward's a problem. Like, he was a problem at Incarnate Ward. He was a problem at Wazoo. Like, yeah, he's real. Plus, awesome story, right? Texas quarterback that was really not recruited out of high school and has now become one of the most electric players in college football. Love that. Like, absolutely love that. So, good for him.
I love the fact that he can pretty much make any throw, and I love his arm angles. Like, he just throws it, and it's effortless. Like, he makes it look effortless the way he throws the ball.
Dude, I know we talked about this on the recap episode, but I have to bring it up again because every time I see it, I laugh audibly out loud. Dude, when they scored to go up like 28-10 or whatever it was, and those two receivers did a unison gator chop with the emphatic, like, two thumbs down.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh every time I watch it. Like, it is such a simple but hilarious dig. Like, oh my god, I love it. I will repost that video. I mean, y'all are gonna see that probably 10 times this year. It is just so funny. I'll probably have it on once a day during the cocktail party week.
Speaking of the Gators, did you see they benched Mertz?
Well, I thought he was hurt. I thought he had.
Oh, is he? Oh,
yeah.
okay. I saw the Lagway starting.
I think he got a concussion, but I will say this. I'm not unconvinced that absent the concussion, DJ Lagway wasn't going to get some run anyways. You know, he was a huge recruit. It was a big coup for them to get him. And by all accounts, he's a real deal Holyfield. So, you know, they got a must-win game against Sanford.
He's their only shot to win more than one game. So
I think he is, man. I mean, look, Graham Mertz is Graham Mertz. I don't know what we're talking about with this. Like, I don't know what we were talking about last year. Dude, he's Graham Mertz. Like, come on, man. The opposite of electric. So, what are we doing? I never get this, man. If you have a guy who could be electric and a guy who you know is not going to be electric, why are you playing the guy you know is not going to be electric? That's Graham Mertz, okay? Say what you want. I know the numbers looked fine last year, completion percentage, blah, 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 blah. They stunk out loud, okay? And as we already discussed on this episode, it's the most important position on the field. So if you've got a kid, even if he's a true freshman, that you think can move the needle a little bit, dude, you got to play him, man. You got to play him. So I think what is going to happen, DJ Lagway is going to have, I'm not saying he's going to have a huge game, but he's going to have a good enough game against Sanford where that coaching staff says, yeah, we're going to stay with the freshman. I just got to do it, man. Billy Napier is fighting for his job.
Well, he's got a big buyout, but my mentality now is that if Jimbo can get fired, anyone can get fired.
Well, hey, look, if we keep talking about Billy Napier, he might call us out for living in Central Florida and being in our mama's basement. Okay.
Hey, give us the exposure. I'm all for it. Talk about it all you want.
Did you see UCF printed a shirt about that? I think their NIL.
Oh
collective
my god, that's spectacular! I didn't.
I think the shirt. I think the shirt just says rural Central Florida.
Oh, that's great.
Outstanding. All right, homie. Well, that's all I got. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's get through this week. No injuries. Let's move on to Kentucky.
No injuries, and then we're on to Kentucky. That's where we're looking. So, Bobby Wilder coming to town with the Golden Eagles. You didn't know that was coming this morning, did you?
No, I did not.
Yeah, boy. Go Monarchs.
Oh, God.
All right, y'all. Everybody have a great Friday. Everybody strap in tomorrow. Get you about 15 hours of football in. Don't let it waste. One Saturday's already gone. Next one coming in the books, baby. Here we go. Until we chat with y'all again, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.